Welcome to Mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor. आप सबनु प्यार भरी सत श्री अकाल, नमस्कार, आदाब and shalom. I know I have been missing for some time, but it is important. The issues which we are going to discuss today, they are the issues which affect not just us as the residents of New York City or the resident of United States. It has international implications, whether we are going to discuss just the budget deal which Joe Biden and Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker and the President of the United States, they just concluded, or what is happening in Ukraine, or China's rebuttal to not to meet the Defense Minister of the United States. So what's going on? And then on top of that, we have in India, we have the BJP, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's party losing election in Karnataka, the only state where they had a government. And as far as I know, since he became the Prime Minister, he has been campaigning in one election after another, and I have no idea what time he really spends in New Delhi or in Delhi about the government. And on top of that, my objection basically is how the government funds are used to fly the Prime Minister all around India for the elections. So we're going to talk about that, but at the same time, we also need to, because we have locally the elections coming up, the primary in New York City, and we have a couple of our candidates who are running. There is only one candidate who happens to be a Punjabi Sikh, and let me make it clear, I'm not endorsing him, so don't even expect me to talk about it, because if somebody wants to discuss about why I'm not endorsing him, I have no problem having the conversation about that. But yes, we need somebody who can be honest and deliver the services to the community. We do not need somebody who looks like Harpreet and then screws up the whole community. That's why I am not going to either vote for him or, ask the people to vote for him. And going beyond that, let us first, before we go into all those nitty-gritty stuff and all these nuts and bolts which I just talked about, introduce you to the guest who you are probably familiar with him. He's a well-known personality to the people who watch my show. Let us say hello to Charlie Zalben. Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Harpreet, how are you?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in. I'm doing good. Let us first start about, what happened with the budget. Okay? Mm-hmm. Joe Biden, who from day one was saying, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm not going to talk about it. He did talk about it. But at the same time, Kevin McCarthy, who was saying that he will not give anything, about him, one of the congressmen made a statement today that Sleepy Joe, who cannot hold on to his pants, again got what he wants.
They underestimate him. Well, first of all, a lot of people misconstrue this is that they were trying to make a distinction which the media glossed over. Mm-hmm. There is the debt limit and there is the budget.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, the debt limit needed to be expanded because of all the prior costs that have been accrued.
Which actually, for the people to understand, those are the costs which he's talking about, where the previous governments had passed those budgets, agreed and signed, either the Congress or the Senate or the President. All three branches of the government, they signed and authorized those expenses, right?
Right.
Okay.
And the President doesn't have any authority other than to execute what they've approved to be spent. But
That's why it is called executive branch.
Right. Okay. And then the debt has expanded because of the prior policies, and the Treasury needs the authority to go exceed the limit that was set for them. And that's what this fight was about. And no, the fight was really about that the Republicans felt that they had an opportunity they had a leverage opportunity to extract policies that they would never have gotten on their own in an election. So they felt that as a minority in a majority position that they could extract concessions from Biden and the Democrats that they could never achieve from an election.
Well, you know, it is interesting that
in a budget.
In a budget.
Not in the debt.
Not in the debt, in the budget. 25% of that 31 trillion was added by the Republicans.
By Trump.
By Trump in 4 years.
In the last 3 years.
3 years.
Yes, since 2017.
Yeah. Okay. They will not talk about it. Okay.
They're also not including the tax cuts that Bush, the 44.
Yeah, George W. Bush, the President W. They call him W. You know.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. They will never talk about it. See, for me, there are two things when it comes down to that. Okay. Let's talk about right now just about that debt ceiling. All these elected, whether those are Republican or Democrat to the lesser extent, but the Republicans on the more extent, why they assume the people are just idiots?
Because most people, I feel, don't really have the time to pay attention other than a headline. And as
you just gave me this a line from Upton Sinclair. Upton Sinclair.
The author.
Okay, say it.
Yeah, and this is my feeling about the media, which is you cannot depend on someone understanding whose salary depends on not understanding. So I don't really feel that the media is like everybody else doing a job. They're trying, and their way of getting their attention and they're getting paid is by drawing attention to what they're writing. And the most sensational headline is what they get the most attention towards.
Yeah, that is true. You finish your thought, then
interpreting what's going on.
Yeah. Because I still remember after 9/11, you know, when a Sikh got killed in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. And then there were other attacks on the Sikhs right here in New York City and around in the neighborhood. And I personally know certain people who had their businesses in Youngstown, Ohio. They had to literally leave their businesses just like that. Okay? And one of my conversations with one of the media people, I'm not going to name that media guys now because they ultimately relented and they did cover the story. They said, you know, when I was talking to them, something happened and I was told, oh, it's a stale news because it happened 24 hours ago.
Right.
Okay? Because they just, and moreover, you know, with the smartphones and everything, the life is so much fast now, your memory is not there anymore. Okay? So when they were talking about the debt deals, all these statements coming from Kevin McCarthy and everybody else, those were getting less attention as the more, what's her name, Boebert was getting more attention from the media by trashing everybody else, and she's getting a divorce. I don't know if you know or not. The congresswoman, what's her name, full name? Boebert?
Boebert,
yeah.
From Colorado.
Yeah, from Colorado, yeah.
I mean, there's that small group of...
And then we have this, what's her name, the other one, Greene.
Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Martha Taylor Greene. Yep.
Yep.
Marjorie Taylor
Greene. Her initials,
Yeah.
you know. Like
MTG, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So those two are getting more attention about the stuff which they say, which does not make any sense, than the people who really want to say something which makes sense. And media just picks up that.
Right. Well, the squeaky wheel gets the most attention, right?
Well, that is true. But at the same time, you know, the media has a responsibility, and I feel like that responsibility is not being taken seriously anymore. Look at what happened with the Fox.
No, I totally agree. It's also partly because they're, you know, getting back to my thoughts about the media, the necessity they have to make a living and it's produce, you know, and I'm not a journalist, but I presume that if you have to produce something every day, you're going to try and find the easiest storyline that you can, even if it's a cliche.
Yeah.
And so that's what they tend to do. They get to go with the easiest cliche, which is the Democrats are in disarray and the Republicans have the stronger hand, even if it's not true. And that kind of is what's shown with this fight over the debt limit, is that Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, and the other Republicans in the Freedom Caucus thought they had leverage to extract all these concessions. Well, in actuality, Biden knew that he would have the leverage.
Yeah, listen, we have to take a break for the same reason which we were talking about. So let's take a break. After the break, we will be right back because, you know, like I always say, when I'm sitting here, when I'm talking about the issues, I want you to pay attention, and you can send an email to me, hstour@gmail.com, about whatever you think needs to be discussed, or whatever you think about what I talk about on the show. While we were taking a break, we were having the same argument about, you know, how the things which actually happen and how it is manipulated by the media and the elected people. But let us first talk about Sleepy Joe, okay? It's really interesting. Newt Gingrich actually told Republicans, don't underestimate Joe Biden.
Let's refer to him as Doc Brandon, if you're going to use a nickname instead of Sleepy Joe.
Yeah. And that's funny that during the correspondence dinner, he did use that term, you know, and he made really good fun of himself.
Yeah. I mean, look what he did at the State of the Union.
Yeah.
How he negotiated with them, took the whole issue of Social Security, Medicare off the table right in real time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So for me, now we are talking about going back to the, you know, debt ceiling limit. Now it is, even though it will not be discussed for next 2 years when the next presidential will be over. Now the question basically comes in. There are two things which he actually also did. One was he pushed certain things into the budget which was not there in the budget. I have to look into it.
In this deal?
In this deal.
Okay.
In this debt ceiling deal.
Well, all the changes are going to the budget. It's not about the debt.
Yeah. So now what actually he did is that, okay, go to the budget, and when you will come up with the budget, then we will look at.
Right. That was his position, and that's what he did.
You know?
They just moved up the negotiations. Instead of having it in September, they did it now.
Yeah, exactly. So with that note, now the thing is that he actually literally outfoxed them. McCarthy and his team who went in to negotiate. Now the question comes in as we talk now. June 5th is the date. Okay, and I'm pretty sure, you know, Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, she will come up with a couple of more days around that time, you know. Okay, that's typical things which would happen. But at the same time, Mitch McConnell coming out supporting the deal.
Well, a lot of this is theater, I think, for fundraising. And I think their original position, when they were making all these non-negotiable demands back in April, when they said they wanted a 22% cut of the budget
Yeah.
and other things, I think that was all for fundraising. Because actually, as the deadline started ticking away, if you look at what was going on, is that I think Biden knew that the leverage was going to be in his hands, because I bet you there was polling that showed that the Republicans were going to be blamed for a default, maybe even more so than the Democrats would have been. And I think that's why, and I think that's when they started reevaluating what hand they were playing with, that I thought they went into the negotiation.
But
I mean, I'm speculating here. I think that they thought they had a stronger hand that they were dealing with, and then Biden started playing hardball, and they started having to accept a lot more. And Biden knew he had to give stuff to them, so I don't think it was as harsh.
So it was.
The deal is as harsh as it could have been.
So what you are trying to tell me, that Biden actually gave them something so that they can save their faces, so that Biden can get something else down the road.
That's the way he always negotiates.
You know, well, then again, that's why probably they call him the master of the deal.
Yeah, Doc Brandon.
Yeah.
Not Sleepy Joe.
Not Sleepy Joe, Doc Brandon.
They want him to sue. The Republicans want to make it seem as Biden is senile and can't function.
Yeah.
But he's really very, very shrewd.
Oh yeah, he is. Now let's move a little bit beyond the budget, beyond the debt ceiling. In Turkey, we have Erdogan again getting 5 years. Okay, it's a new way of democratically getting dictators elected to some extent. Okay, Erdogan actually is more close to Putin than he is to the Western countries and the NATO.
Right.
Turkey cannot be expelled from NATO. Okay. So, do you really think that this may be somehow, he may play a major role in reconciliation and bringing this war between Ukraine and Russia to an end?
Well,
look at his positions.
I think it will happen. I mean, they might be negotiating in a position to help negotiate once there's a military outcome on the ground, which I think the Ukrainians will.
They are planning, actually. You know, Zelensky, I think, made an announcement today that they are ready and they will make it any day.
Neither side will come to the negotiating table until there is one side that is defeated.
Well,
that's my opinion.
Not necessarily defeated, because I have seen the wars going on between India and Pakistan, and whenever the Pakistan felt like that, okay, for me, the 71 war, not the 71, 65 war, okay, they were actually territorially, India gained as much territory as Pakistan gained in India, not much different. But at the same time, what Pakistan gained was non-productive part of the territory as compared to what India gained. And they basically, you know, both countries, they came to sort of like bankruptcy, you know, because war costs you money, not just the human lives. Okay, and they decided to negotiate. 71 war, definitely, you know, Pakistan lost, no doubt about it. But in this scenario between Russia and Ukraine, I don't still think that, I do believe that Ukraine may push Russia back from whatever territory Russia took of the Ukraine. But would Ukraine be able to really go into Russia because
they don't. No, they don't. They don't. I don't think they have any designs of going into Russia.
Because even Western countries and NATO, they don't want him to do it.
No, I think Ukraine has designs on
Crimea,
getting all the territory back that Russia has took from the Ukraine,
including Crimea.
Maybe defeat is not the right word. Maybe fatigue might be a better term.
Yeah,
but I don't feel. I think that. Neither side will come to the table until the military action has culminated from one side or the other. And I have a feeling that Russia will culminate before Ukraine does. And that Ukraine is incredibly motivated and incredibly trained now and equipped that we'll see when this spring offensive happens, or counteroffensive, I guess you call, that we'll see how Russia responds to it. But I think right now, I think what we're seeing is that Ukraine is preparing the battlefield. I mean, even today they were talking about these drones hitting Moscow. And then I saw somebody, some headline in the Times saying that it might have been, or some other place that it might have been, a false flag, meaning that Russia had done it. But I might tend to think that it might have been some of those Russian dissidents that are
those who are not in favor of this war, what's going on, or what is happening.
Right, but they might be, obviously Ukraine is supporting them because
of course
Ukraine may not technically be going in, and they're telling Russia exactly the same thing that Russia said to them in 2014, that, Russia, I guess, said, we don't know how all these people got the Russian, vehicles, maybe they bought them in the open market. And that's what Ukraine is saying. I don't know how they got these vehicles, maybe they bought it. But anyway, that by them doing that, going in and doing these skirmishes in Russia, it's expanding the battlefield, and that just helps Ukraine so that all of a sudden they're stretching out all the forces, Russian forces, and they have to defend a larger area now than they thought they had to.
Yeah, but if we look at, Crimea, for Putin, that is something which he would definitely hate to lose.
Oh, it's major. I mean, that's where the Black Sea Fleet is located.
Yeah. Yeah, they already lost one of their best, the ship.
And that goes back to Turkey, because Turkey is the chokehold over there for getting in and out of the Asia, I guess it's the
Adriatic Sea.
Yeah,
Adriatic Sea.
Yeah, so, you can't, I mean, you're going to have to deal with Turkey.
That's why I'm saying that Erdogan may be looking at that, okay, now I have won the election and maybe I can play a role of a statesman, So we were talking about all this, the war, Ukraine and Russia, and how Erdogan can play some role, and China itself is trying to play a role where Chinese foreign minister went to NATO countries, and to the foreign ministers, he tried to actually create a wedge in the Western countries, which he could not succeed. But yes, we will see what happens in this coming up spring offense from the Ukrainian President Zelensky, who announced actually only 24 hours ago that they are ready to go. So it is only maybe next 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, we don't know yet. But it is going to happen. And also, we should not forget that this is the first time where the Wagner group, which the President Putin also uses as an army, threatened the generals of Russian army with the consequences, which means the war is not about just Russia over Ukraine, which was supposed to fall within 3 or 4 days by everybody estimated that. But there is a bigger issue which is within Russia going on, and that is something, you know, we are going to talk about that only about for maybe another minute or two, because there are two very important issues I want to talk about after that. So what do you think about the Wagner Group or Wagner Group, whatever they call it?
Oh, they're Nazis. I mean, they're awful, awful war criminals, you know, and
but they are actually doing at Putin's bidding. They are also spread it into some African countries also.
Yes, yeah, and they are killing. They're indiscriminate in their killing, from what I've read. I haven't really studied the Africa part that much, but they're mercenaries. They have very. I guess they have allegiance to Russia, but not necessarily. I'm sure if there was any kind of political turmoil and Putin was no longer there and Prigozhin thought that he could be there, that they would support Prigozhin. I mean, there's no allegiance necessarily to those troops, you know, from what I can tell. You know, and then, you know, he was the one, Prigozhin, who they called Putin's chef, you know, he was the one who was recruiting criminals from the prisons as cannon fodder, you know, so that, you know, so that they would, I mean, they would just send people out physically without really inadequate weapons.
And the training.
Yeah.
Either weapon or training.
Yeah. And just to put their body on the line. That was the way they could tell if there was, you know, where the Ukrainians were firing from. Because I guess that some of the technology that the Ukrainians had available to them, the Russians don't. They don't have very good satellite system to give them up-to-date battlefield information. So, I mean, they need to do it by sending out people and getting them killed.
Yeah, and
but anyway, also, but Prigozhin, you know, they did do that in Bakhmut, and the Wagner Group is leaving. But they said the Russian army is going to be there, but the Russian army may not be able to control it. They're controlling rubble. They may not be able to actually control it.
Either way, you know, Wagner Group will end up claiming that we got the territory, we gave it to you, and you just could not hold it.
Yeah, it's more PR than...
Coming to some local politics on the New York City, you know how first we had this Hudson Gateway Tunnel, which Chris Christie canceled.
Right.
And now we have to build it by paying maybe double the cost what it was originally.
Right.
And Christie doesn't have to pay, you know, any price for what he did.
Right.
And now we also have congestion pricing here.
Right.
In the city coming up below 60th Street, which means basically anybody who lives within those below 60th Street in Manhattan, not only that those people are getting penalized to live there,
right,
but anybody like myself who is traveling from, you know, any part of Brooklyn or Queens, okay, into New Jersey through Manhattan, I have to pay the price.
Right. Right.
What the heck is going on?
Or even if you don't go to New Jersey, if you're going, you know,
within
I live in Manhattan. I just came out to Queens. If I go back, I'm going to have to
look
pay.
at you. Look at you. Yeah, you came here to do the show. Going back, coming out, you will have to pay. Going back, you have to pay.
Even though I live in Manhattan, I have a garage, and you know, it's everybody is getting. But if you live on the other side of 60th Street, north of it, then you don't have to pay that.
Is it possible that they are in the long run looking at that anything below 60 just totally kill the residential areas and leave some few top billionaires to control that part, and the corporations run that part of the city, and everybody else is being pushed out with the money to the other boroughs and outside?
I don't know. I mean,
think about it.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm pretty sure you did not really think about it, but I was thinking about it while I was discussing with you earlier.
To convert some of the available office spaces to residential now. And
no, it is, listen, the COVID came, it happened, it went. It will take time to come back again. I'm looking not just today, I'm looking at down the road like 30 years, 40 years. Mm-hmm. You know, when you and I we will not be around.
Right.
You know, but they are slowly, you know, if you really look at the way American system works, okay, you can have an email, but you don't have to have it. Now you have to have the email. If you do not have the email, there are a lot of functionalities which you cannot do.
Right.
So they literally push the people, the older generation, to either have the email or hire somebody to do the stuff. So whatever money they have, spend it. Mm-hmm. So same way I'm looking at, and I'm thinking that maybe they have somebody thinking about it, you know, below 60th Street, let us make it one of those James Bond style area to live in.
That could be, but my understanding is that there was always these technocratic solutions to a problem, and it's very narrow. I think they were looking at trying to raise money for the MTA, and the way they were going to tax it was under the pretext of saying, well, we'll do congestion pricing to help with the environment. So that was their way of applying a tax as a use tax, as opposed to taxing everybody in order to give the MTA more money. But they saw that in other cities that they usually do it in the business district. So they had your central business district here of Midtown and the Wall Street district. Mm-hmm. And my understanding is that they looked at that and they went, oh, we'll just do everything south of 60th Street instead of making two separate areas, you know, for that. So I don't think that there was any kind of foresight. I mean, they always look for pretext, you know, and they have a solution that they will adapt to whatever reasoning that they can get it to implement it, which is what I live on 14th Street in Lower Manhattan, and they established a busway there, and they used a half a dozen reasons why they were going to implement it, but ultimately it was that they wanted to implement it, and they just decided to do it. You know, regardless of whatever the community input was, they just said, we're going to do it.
No, I agree. You know, I still remember, you know, when they were planning to make changes on Woodhaven Boulevard to take out one of the traffic lane on each side, one lane on each side, and make it exclusive for the buses. Okay, the community was against it, community boards were against it, but they still did it. Right. You know, so when the government wants to do something, even though they will do it, but what really baffles me is looking at that, which they already killed the medallions and yellow cab industry. They had the congestion pricing for MTA. Okay, they have MTA tax on those for MTA, and then they have over and above other taxes on New York City residents. And part of that also goes to MTA. And, excuse me, still on MTA, they are still looking for more money.
Right.
You know, look at this Grand Central Access, LIRR, how much they spent? About 12 billion.
12 billion, okay.
Yeah, okay. So why everybody else is being punished to come to Manhattan, and the people who actually live within, you are concerned about you living just in Manhattan, but I'm going beyond that, because if I live outside Manhattan and I have to go to New Jersey, I still have to pay. Unless I go detour from George Washington Bridge, which never moves anyway.
Or you can go through Staten Island or George Washington Bridge, right?
Yeah. Neither one of them moves.
Right. But there's the other thing that I don't think that the legislators have taken into account, that it's going to impact tourism and people coming in to Manhattan or other parts of the city just on the spur of the moment. You know, it's going to be a deterrent for that. And there's I think that there's a major amount of traffic around, I mean, just economic traffic, you know, people coming in, going to the shows and going to restaurants and other things.
The museums,
right,
and, you know.
That people just do that. And if they feel like they're have to pay an extra $9 or whatever the fare is, it is, it's going to diminish. And they're not going to get as much revenue as they think they might. You know, I think maybe the reason why they're doing it this way is that it doesn't seem obvious that they're applying a tax, as opposed to applying a tax to everybody and making it less of a rate, instead of, you know, a point of use tax that makes it seem like, oh, it's only the people that are using it will have to pay, and not that I'm paying for it.
Well, for me, ultimately, it will come out of the pocket, to begin with, it will come out of the pocket of the people who live there, right?
Right.
But ultimately, it will get spread around indirectly to the other people, because those people who are providing services from that area, they have to pass that cost on to whatever they produce, or whatever the consultation fees are, and they will add to that, because, you know, okay, I have this $1,000 consultation fee, but I have this another $200 added to it as that congestion pricing plus MTA tax, so your bill is going to be $1,200, and I'm living in Long Island or in Queens or Brooklyn, I have to pay that extra $200.
Right. But there's also the unintended consequences. I mean, when they implemented the busway on 14th Street, I don't think they anticipated all the businesses that would go out of business on 14th Street because of the lack of pedestrian car traffic there. And it's still vacant along, even, I mean, they implemented it a month before the pandemic hit, or 2 months before. And the pandemic probably did have some effect, but before the pandemic hit, there were people, there were restaurants and other places that were just hanging on because they did not have the same traffic going to them to visit their stores because of the elimination of private cars driving on 14th Street.
Question. Do you really think the current Mayor Eric Adams, would do anything or take any stand on any of those issues?
No. Now, I mean, personally, I haven't made a firm judgment about Adams as opposed to my feelings about Mayor de Blasio, who I thought was very, very ineffective. So we'll see, you know, but I can't see him taking a stand because he hasn't.
He hasn't taken any stand on anything, but except one thing, you know, which I feel like that he is, maybe he's looking at the bigger picture to maybe run for the presidential election down the road. He is trying to insert religion also into the services, the government services. You know, he's doing like, you know, the religious, some sort of thing like that, you know, where those religious bodies, the priest and pastors, they come together and they talk about how we can make this city better. And, you know, that government's branch is, you know, more into the government, the church more into the government. And also what really shocked me when he made a comment sometime back, I think he was, either he had just gotten elected or before the election, where he said that I go to the church with a gun in my pocket. You know, you don't go to church or place of worship to shoot somebody. So for me it is like, you know, there are, on the one hand, we talk about separation of the, you know, the government from the church, but on the other hand, it is being pushed like by the Republicans. He's also slowly bringing it into the government affairs.
Well, I'm a little unsure about what Adams is doing. I mean, but as every politician, he's trying to keep his base of voters primed and ready to go for him. So he obviously feels that certain parts of the religious communities in New York he can get aligned with him. That's what he's going to be doing. But just to veer off a little bit, I mean, the Republicans, unfortunately, seem to have the loudest voices that are looking to create a theocracy as opposed to being a democracy. You know, so that they would prefer to see an established religion, which is contrary to the whole Constitution, which forbids establishment of a religion.
Yeah,
You know?
look at Texas. You know, the governor over there, Governor Abbott, he already, passed a law where those 10 commandments, they will be posted, you know.
It failed, fortunately.
I know, but he will bring it again.
Yeah.
You know, and on the other side also, look at this, I understand that, okay, all these undocumented people coming, because the only way of entries is either through Texas or part of California. Okay, I understand that. The government was providing us resources. Oh, that actually reminds me, we don't have that much time left. The Title 42.
Okay.
The Republicans were crying that once Title 42 ends, America will be overtaken by the immigrants. What happened? There are less coming in now.
Yep. Because they lost another weapon for scaring people. That's why they were fighting to keep it. They didn't really care about immigration or policy. They just want an issue to scream about. And that's what it's all about. It's all theatrical in a way,
No, but at the same time, it is so, in a way, it is so shameful that you are shipping the people without proper clothing, even the kids, to the places from Texas where you have probably 60 degree, 70 degree temperature to New York and Washington, D.C., where the temperatures are in their 20s or teens, without even providing them the shoes.
Well, that's the states doing. That's Texas.
Yeah.
Is doing that.
Yeah, they are doing it.
Government.
Yeah, that it is. Texas government is doing, and they are saying that we are going to punish the, what was that? The term which they used when the Trump decided to send ICE to the, New York City, Chicago, and San Francisco.
Sanctuary cities?
The sanctuary cities. The sanctuary cities were not far, like, they did not do that, okay, and any undocumented can come in here. They just said that ICE just cannot walk in because that will be against the law.
Right.
But now it is totally upside down. And then before we go, DeSantis.
Yes.
I would like to have your opinion on that.
He could be dangerous. I think he's totally ineffective. I don't think he's going to go as far as he thinks he will. He's a one-note pony. But, it serves the media's purposes to keep breathing life into his campaign. He's got a lot of money behind him. He can't say anything. And he just repeat, to paraphrase what Joe Biden said about Rudy Giuliani, all he says is a noun, a verb, and woke.
With that note, today's show is coming to an end, and remember, this is the show where you should be watching and talking about, and you have anything which you would like to be discussed and your opinion, please email at justour@gmail.com, and I will be more than happy to get back to you. With that note, till next time, good night and good luck.